The hype cycle of any transformative technology follows a predictable and often brutal pattern. We saw it with the early days of the internet with artificial intelligence, and now we are seeing it with quantum computing. There is an initial period of irrational exuberance, where the promise of a technology far outpaces its current physical reality. This is followed by what many in the industry call the quantum winter, a period of cooling investment, skepticism, and a painful return to the foundational engineering that should have been the focus all along. To understand the quantum winter, you have to look at the massive gap between the NISQ era we are currently living in and the fault-tolerant era we were promised. NISQ stands for Noisy Intermediate Scale Quantum. It means we have computers with 50 to 1,000 qubits, but those qubits are incredibly fragile, prone to errors from the slightest vibration, and lose their coherence in microseconds. We are essentially trying to build a cathedral out of wet sand, and the investors are starting to notice that the tide is coming in. The primary cause of the impending quantum winter is the error correction wall. In a classical computer, you can run a program for days without a single bit flipping out of place. In a quantum computer, the error rates are so high that for every one logical qubit you want to use for a calculation, you need thousands of physical qubits just to watch over and correct its mistakes. This scaling problem means that a 1,000 qubit machine, which sounds impressive on a press release, is effectively useless for solving real-world problems like breaking encryption or designing new drugs. We need millions of qubits, and we need them to be stable. The industry has spent the last 5 years chasing quantum supremacy, the ability to do one useless task faster than a classical machine instead of chasing quantum utility. As the easy venture capital dries up, the companies that built their business models on the promise of quantum advantage by 2025 are finding themselves in a fight for survival. However, the quantum winter is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of maturity. Just as the dot-com crash didn't mean the internet was a scam, a cooling in the quantum market doesn't mean the physics is wrong. It simply means that the grifters and the hype men are being flushed out. For those of us on the hardware and R&D side, the winter is actually a relief. It allows the real engineers to stop chasing flashy headlines and start solving the boring problems that actually matter. We are talking about the thermodynamics of dilution refrigerators, the material science of silicon vacancy centers, and the development of cryogenic CMOS electronics that can operate at 10 millikelvin. This is the grit phase of the revolution. The companies that survive the winter will be the ones that focused on building a stable modular hardware stack rather than trying to simulate the entire world on a noisy processor. For the technology professional or the veteran, managing the hype is a tactical necessity. We have to be able to distinguish between quantum ready and quantum capable. Most organizations today should be quantum ready, meaning they are migrating their encryption to post-quantum standards and understanding how their data flows might eventually be optimized. But very few are quantum capable, meaning they have a problem that actually requires a quantum core to solve today. During the winter, the focus shifts to hybrid classical quantum architectures. We are learning how to use small, noisy quantum processors as co-processors for very specific parts of a classical algorithm. This is the force multiplier approach. You don't replace the entire tank, you just upgrade the targeting sensor. This pragmatic, incremental progress is less exciting for a CNBC headline, but it is the only way we eventually get to the fault-tolerant machines that will actually change the world. The danger of the quantum winter is not the lack of money, but the lack of talent. If the hype dies too quickly, the next generation of physicists and engineers might move into more stable fields like AI or biotech. This is why we need to maintain a quantum realism. We have to be honest about the timelines. Q-Day is still coming, and the potential for a $10 trillion economic shift is still real. But we are looking at a decade-long marathon, not a 2-year sprint. The nations that continue to fund their quantum programs through the winter, like the CHIPS and Science Act in the US or the massive state-level investments in China, will be the ones that possess the sovereign advantage on the other side. They understand that the winter is just the season where the strongest roots are grown. If you can survive the cooling, you own the spring. We aren't giving up on the dream. We're just finally putting in the work to build it.